Spags, it's Friday, and we got USFL Week 2 DFS and another underdog draft here before the NFL draft.
Yeah, the USFL's games will be kicking off tonight, so we're going to talk about the Friday games, some Saturday games, a Sunday game. We also, as Pete mentioned, going to do an underdog rookie sophomore best ball draft over there to celebrate the NFL draft not that far away. And also some NFL news. Deebo Samuel apparently wants out officially, so pick up your Friday beers and let's hit this intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Splash Play, the fantasy football podcast for every game under the sun. And once again, I'm Chris Spags, joined by your friend of mine, Pete Overzet. Pete, how are you doing? How'd you make out this week?
I'm doing good, but not as good as you. You got the Friday afternoon beer going on. I just had lunch, and you know what? It didn't even cross my mind to crack open a beer for this show, but that's why you're just on another level than me.
You know, that's what I like to have a little fun on this show. And nothing signifies that more than having one beer that I'll probably sip lightly in between talking all show long here. But it gives me that cool, detached vibe that Pete, I know you and I both strive so effortlessly for.
Isn't it funny how I think about that sometimes with a beer, where it's like, even if you're just having one beer, it's not even that you're getting a buzz. It's not even necessarily that you love the taste so much, but it's what it signals to you as like a frame of mind. You know, like if you have a hard workout and then like you crack a beer, you're like, this feels like a reward thing that I associate it with. So I like the idea of just having a beer solely for the mental mindset that it could potentially put you in.
Yeah, I think, I am also definitely drinking to get drunk today. 9.5% Golden Monkey here. Of course, Victory, a local brewer in Philadelphia, but one you can get anywhere else. And I'd very much recommend the Victory Golden Monkeys if you like yourself a nice triple IPA. But let's dig into this everything we got, I guess, going on. NFL news, USFL, we talked about a rookie sophomore draft. But first of all, let's give the plugs. Go over to footballoutsiders.com right now. Check out some of the articles on there. The FO40 sponsored by Underdog presented as well. So lots of stuff that they are, going to be important to you when you're doing the rookie sophomore drafts like we're doing. Everything on FO is trying to cover that. So covering it from the real NFL perspective, covering it from the fantasy perspective, it all comes together over at footballoutsiders.com. So go check that out. And if you want to subscribe as well, Football Outsiders Almanac coming out in a few short months. Data will be coming out and being updated as we go. So footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. Great place to go as well. And also make sure you are subscribed to the Pete's channel, subscribe to the Splash Play channel. We're starting to put out some more content on both. Pete, we're even crushing on Twitter views now, 3x the views that we had normally. And people I know really care about the business parts of this, and us putting clips out there. We're really just helping evangelize the brand in a way that nobody else wants to do for us.
Yeah, our viewers, our listeners, they're in on the ground floor. They were here when you started your sports betting TikTok account. They've been here as we work to, up our game from an SEO perspective. So yes, we're always willing to peel behind the curtain here. And while we're doing that, we also need to give our guy Paul, who has been on the show previously, happy birthday. Turns 35 today. You are almost just 2 months older than me. Exactly, Paul. So happy birthday and enjoy your beers today.
And you both are 10 years older than me. So that's crazy how that works out, this content game of ours.
No, Spags. No.
If I shave this beard, I'm telling you, like it's going to happen one day where I don't feel like my face is fat and fatherly / alcohol bloated, whatever the case may be. But then I'll come on the show and you'll be like, well, who is this young movie star coming out? Is this somebody dating Kristen Stewart? Also, that's already feels like a dated reference.
I mean, do you want to give you an idea for me with facial hair? I haven't shaved all week.
So you just don't grow at all. You're not a grower nor a shower?
No. I mean, you can kind of see it once you start to zoom in there, like the scruff. But I mean, when we're backed up here, I mean, you'd never know.
That's like Sandy Surfer Boy facial hair, where it's like, oh, there's just like a little bit, but it's probably nice and soft too, like a baby's bottom.
Come on. Now you're spreading false news.
Spags, I've been doing literal internet content now for 12 years, and then was doing actual real life PR jobs before that. So no, I'm unfortunately not. Though, we try to I think we do represent fairly young in terms of the overall broadcasting industry, where like, it's always shocking to hear like the guy who's the new voice of like MLB. I forget which one he is. He's like 50 years old, and it's like, oh, you've been fucking grinding for your break for literally 25 years.
Yeah. But this show keeps us young, Spags. That's what happens.
And speaking of keeping us young, so does the NFL news, where wide receivers tend to be wanting to get paid now more than ever. And Deebo Samuel, a guy that we talked about, I think last week we touched on some of the wide receivers out there looking for new deals, guys, in their final year of their rookie contracts. Deebo's one of those guys. Terry McLaurin, another. A.J. Brown is another. We got some updates on Deebo. First, Pete, where apparently he wants a trade. It's been reported officially. Twitter people out there were fake newsing some trades to the Vikings, which I don't really see how that would make the most sense. But I'm sure, fan fiction always going to be a popular thing, whether it be for sports or for hentai. Either way, Pete, that we do have Deebo Samuel requesting this trade. Do you think it happens? Because it feels like the Niners probably don't want to pay him as much as he thinks he's worth, but also using him as a running back, using him as much of a Swiss Army knife role as anybody out there. It feels like Deebo probably does deserve a contract, if not, Stephon Diggs level, certainly some approximation therein.
Yeah, my inclination is that they're going to get this worked out. I mean, Deebo, part of his versatility is that he's going to be able to work in whatever kind of environment they have, whether that's a Jimmy Garoppolo led team, a Trey Lance led team. He's such a big part of their offense that I can't imagine they are going to let him go for anything outside of a Godfather offer. And I just don't think that teams are going to be able to kind of pony up in a way that the 49ers would let him go. In the same way, like the Seahawks were casually shopping around DK Metcalf, or at least teams were fishing for him. And, their asking price is astronomical. And I think the 49ers asking price should be as well. I think this kind of just falls into the same bucket as a lot of our offseason news, with the wide receiver divas. You have your Kyler Murrays, and they all want to get paid. They all want their, 15 minutes in the sun. And I think he's just doing a little public posturing to let everyone know that he is important and he wants to feel valued and he wants to get paid. So I don't know. I think cooler heads will prevail. I think it'll work out. I can't imagine the 49ers moving on from him.
See, I can imagine them moving on, and I think it depends on if the Jets come their way with the package they've been offering everybody for an alpha wide receiver this offseason, where they were in on Tyreek Hill. Reports are that they've sniffed around a bunch of other guys as well, DK Metcalf being one of them. I feel like it wouldn't surprise me for the Niners to be like, yeah, draft capital's draft capital. We feel like we can replace this production with some combination of George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, whatever you pick up in this offseason / in the NFL draft. Like, I wouldn't be shocked, Pete. And I think, too, we're also just kind of due for this wide receiver bubble to burst, where the Jets clearly want to pay somebody big time if they do get a Deebo or AJ Brown actually, to the table to want to take a trade to them. I think then that's where that kicks in a little bit more. But I feel like you're kind of going to see both sides coming up here, where I wouldn't be surprised if we see one more big deal. I also wouldn't be surprised to see this bubble burst and guys end up playing on franchise tags coming up more this season, next offseason, whatever the case may be. But you don't see any world at all where Deebo could go. Again, we always like to grade the odds here. What percentage or what odd level would you give for Deebo actually moving on?
Well, I mean, the rumor when he said why he wanted to get traded was because of his running back usage. He was saying that he doesn't, want to be used like that. I mean, wouldn't a big selling point of acquiring Deebo be that versatility and that you'd get to use him in a variety of ways? So I guess I'm actually curious if the running back usage is just a code for something else that he's actually upset with. Maybe he's not a big Trey Lance fan. Maybe he's worried about the offense there. I don't know. I'm just having a hard time really understanding what his gripe is, and how that would necessarily be solved by going to another team. Like, if you're Deebo Samuel, do you really want to go play for the Jets as opposed to Kyle Shanahan? I mean, you're leaving to an incredibly competitive conference, to a coaching situation, a team situation, a QB situation that is, I think, far more shaky than what you have in San Francisco. I don't know. If you just want the bag, I get it. But Deebo strikes me as such a competitor too, and a guy that wants to compete in the playoffs and for Super Bowls. And to me, it feels like San Francisco is much, much closer to that.
I mean, Robert Saleh, former Niners coach, I feel like maybe could be something there with the Jets that does make that a little more likely. I'm just reading the tea leaves, connecting some dots of these things happening this offseason, and I'm going to mostly agree with you. Like, I think it's unlikely the Niners would give him up. I think the running back thing, maybe something about his contract, where if you're taking X amount of snaps at running back, maybe that's somehow cutting into your value as a receiver, and he probably wants to be paid like a number one receiver. TubeSock saying he knows running backs get hurt and wants to get paid ASAP if he's doing this role. It's also pretty viable too. I think there's a lot of ways to read Deebo's discontent, but at the end of the day, like, if you're paying him what Diggs is getting, like, he'll probably shut up and do whatever you ask. Similarly, the Titans also said they have no interest in trading AJ Brown. Pete, we're going to talk about Terry McLaurin in a second here, but just if you had to guess which of these guys is more likely to go, I feel like the AJ Brown whispers out of all these guys have been the quietest, besides that one report that he's not going to do the offseason workouts. But like, he shouldn't be doing it at this point in his career anyway if he's trying to get that big contract.
Yeah, I mean, the one that honestly still makes the most sense to me is DK Metcalf, just because of the trajectory that the Seahawks are heading in right now. And they just, the other team, and I guess you could say Terry McLaurin, but again, we're in this new meta right now with the NFL where these alpha wide receivers are so important for how you can run an offense, how you can elevate the quarterback play around you. And so I don't know. I feel like it would really take a massive offer to pry one of these guys away from their teams. I think it's unlikely. I think the most likely thing is none of these guys get moved, but the Seahawks breaking and shipping off DK Metcalf would be the one I could actually see happen.
But yeah, I think that makes the most sense. And AJ Brown, I think, weirdly, you could probably make the best case for him being movable relative to what the Titans achieved last year with him being out for chunks of the year, Julio Jones being out, and also not the most effective when he was in there. And they still ended up with that top seed, didn't pay off in any meaningful way, but still, a spot where they could have made some hay, if things worked out their way or things just broke a little better for him. So AJ Brown, I feel like make the best case for him to get traded. I think Deebo's more likely to get traded out of those two guys. And again, nothing new on the Terry McLaurin front, but I thought this is funny, Pete. The Commanders said that they view, and this is an exact quote, they view Carson Wentz as more than a bridge quarterback. Kind of things you have to say in the offseason just to get the fans feeling good about this move. And maybe Carson does have some juice left in the tank. But Pete, again, what's the likelihood here that Carson actually makes it, let's say even through this whole season, let alone to a second season as the Commanders QB?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to define. I mean, Carson Wentz is literally a bridge quarterback. Or sorry, not literally, but about as close to the definition of a bridge quarterback as you can get at his age, at 29 years old, not a top 10 quarterback in the league. Like, they're plugging holes around him. Obviously, they think he can play better than he did in Philadelphia and in Indianapolis, but of course it's a bridge quarterback. They're biding their time until they can find the next quarterback they like. And this seems like a good year to take a bridge year, right? I mean, it's not a loaded quarterback class. Maybe the picks don't really line up for them to get a guy they like, and they think Carson Wentz can keep them competitive for a year. That makes sense to me. But of course, you don't want to say out loud that Carson Wentz is a bridge quarterback. So to me, there's not much to that quote.
Yeah, just one of those things that, as the Commanders are giving lots of, including to judicial organizations out there, giving lots of fodder just to be made fun of and poked holes in. And I think that's probably the case here. But you got to say those kind of things, whether you're Ron Rivera, whether you're the front office. So I'm with you on that. I think overall, Carson Wentz, we'll see if he has anything left. This is probably his last shot, you'd think, to be a starting QB. And we'll see how that ends up going. Pete, let's dig into some of this other stuff here. And actually, is there anything else? I didn't see the Fantasy Life newsletter come through. I don't know if you're taking some time off or if I just missed it. But anything else news-wise that struck your fancy at all?
Yeah, no, newsletter right now is Monday and Thursdays. So there's one yesterday, but not today. Yeah, I mean, mainly just draft rumors, stuff like that. It does seem like the conventional wisdom right now is I saw Josh Norris had a tweet. He likes the under 2.5 QBs in round one, which is, most mock drafts right now have 2 QBs. I still just felt like when, the bright lights are on, that some of these teams are going to want to get a quarterback later in round one, but that's interesting. And we continue to get tons of buzz on wide receivers. And I still think we're going to probably see at least 6 go in round one. So yeah, I'm just kind of getting excited for the draft next Thursday, but yeah, not a ton of news otherwise.
Yeah, I'm with you on that prop bet as well. The idea of taking under 2.5 QB seems logical. Kenny Pickett, we talked a lot about, probably just going to go higher than Malik Willis, even though Malik Willis, it certainly wouldn't be a surprise to see him go. Even some quotes this week from Jared Goff talking about how he's not going to be too mad at the Lions, as he probably can't be mad at anything at this point, but not to be too mad if they take another quarterback. But besides that, the Matt Corral, Desmond Ridder tier of guys seems like a bridge too far for a first rounder. So I'm pretty comfortable with that bet as well. Let's talk about the USFL though, Pete. It's week 2. And the tournaments on DraftKings, I have to say, I'm doing mostly single entry this week just because none of them really struck my fancy enough. But obviously, we talked about some of the DFS issues on Monday's show, and you talked about it on Lulz as well with Brian Hooper, who is probably one of the biggest spenders in DFS out there, and also one of the biggest earners too. How are you feeling about this week's tournaments? And I think we reacted on Monday enough, but I feel like the more I've had time to sit with it, like it just sucks. Like, it's just not, there's nothing really good that's going to spur up interest in week 2.
Yeah, I did. I was planning on making the transition like you to doing some single entry and 3 max, building 1 or 2 teams, but the prize pools are just so small for that. Unless I really want to like pony up for one of the more expensive entries, which I don't necessarily feel like. So I ended up just registering 25 teams in the big contest, the $12 100K. That has 25K up top. So yeah, it was just like kind of like what you were describing. It's what makes it exciting, what makes it fun. The 25K up top is still really nice. So I figured I would go MME bro again. And yeah, I was doing some research earlier today, excited to make my lineups for that tonight. And I don't know, how do you feel in general now about a 4-game slate across 3 days? Or is it 3 days, or is it just 2 days?
No, it's 3 days. So it's Sunday
yeah,
too. There's like a showdown game on Sunday. And honestly, I think the Sunday game is the most appealing one. It's the Breakers versus Tampa Bay, 2 teams that showed a good amount really on both sides of the ball in their first week 1 games. But I feel like overall, like I don't like 3-day tournaments for anything besides golf. I guess that's the one. But even then, you're not having a late swap. Like, you're pretty much locked in there. So you can kind of enjoy it over the course of the 4 days there, guys making the cut, guys making the weekend, all of that. For this, though, I just feel like it doesn't reward it, where I'd rather have a bigger tournament pool for Saturday. I'd rather have, I know the 2 gamers, people tend to not like those, but like, I don't know, like 3 days worth of it and having to pay attention in 3 different slots just to maybe even ensure like profitability is never my thing. So that's why I figured I'll throw in 5 to 10 single entries and just, and at least I'll have some skin in the game, if not as much as I normally would for NFL.
Yeah. Dylan saying DK really killed my USFL chub. I mean, it is disappointing here. Obviously, this locks in about 5 hours. I assume this contest will fill. We're at 7,300 now. What is that? About 2,500 more to go. And I do think that will fill, but I've just been upset that they didn't give us a chance at filling a bigger prize pool, because we didn't know. We didn't have a good data set as far as like with a full week and people getting excited about 100K, and everything trickles down, right? I mean, sites push out more content, will devote more shows, resources to something where there's bigger prize pools, where they know there's the attention from it. And so then you put this out, and obviously our grinders, our Cody Mains, our Justin Freemans, still pushing hard on this stuff. But I think it's fair to wonder where interest levels are going to be in a week or 2 from here.
Even the play action, like that's normally what I enter for NFL every week. I've talked in the show. I think in our first season, we did a show with Davis where I was like, one of my goals is still to win one of the play actions, preferably in NFL main season 1, because that 100K would be nice. But I feel like overall, like it's 1K flat up top for the play action. Then from there, obviously with any of these DK tournaments now, it just gets worse from there. Like, it just didn't do enough for me. And I feel like that's the part where if you want to get casual interest going, like, $3 20 max tournament that has 25K up top, even, like, I feel like that's something the USFL, if I were the USFL, I would just throw money towards that and subsidize it if you could.
Yeah. But I mean, this is what we were talking about on Lulz, how stupid the DFS laws are, that the sites have to guarantee the prize pools. And so then they're terrified about overlay, where if they could have a flexible model, similar to what poker tournaments used to be. And if a bunch of people register, the prize pool gets really big. If a bunch of people don't, then it just shrinks and the contest runs, and DraftKings doesn't eat a bunch of overlay. Like, obviously that would be perfect for contests like USFL, where they don't have a lot of data to project, the interest level with this stuff. And so, it makes sense that they don't want to take too many L's on this, but I feel like they should have given us another chance when they were the ones who messed it up last week.
Yeah, for what it's worth, and this is something where we don't normally talk about like page view counts of things, but I thought it was interesting because one of our guys, Brian Knowles, over at Football Outsiders, was writing a lot of the USFL previews that we talked about on this show. I really did good work kind of culling information on it. He wasn't sure if he should do like a week by week preview show, or wasn't sure of the audience there. Like, he was going to do it, I think, because we asked regardless. But it was interesting to note to me that our week 1 recap article on Football Outsider was actually the highest page view article of the week, and was about 2x what was number 2, which is Mike Tanier's ongoing NFL draft content. So I think it's really one of those things where, if you're a content creator out there and you are really going all in here, it seems like it's tough. But I think that's when the opportunity really is like, when you are, covering the USFL and people want to hear more about it. There's still going to be 1 million viewers this weekend per game, probably, if not a little bit more. Like, I feel like it's one of those things that people feel like it's less hot than it is, but because it's on TV and because it's football, like, and on broadcast TV and pushed pretty heavily, like, there's still going to be interest in it. It's just like, if everybody else treats it like nothing, it's going to be ultimately not creating a lot of value for the DraftKings, for the content people out there.
Yeah, and I mean, this would have been the perfect weekend for the big contest, right? Because last week we were dealing with Easter Sunday too. Like, a lot of people had stuff going on. A lot of people didn't want to be around their computer, late swapping USFL lineups on a Sunday. And we're at the tail end of NFL free agency. There's kind of a calm before the storm with the NFL draft next week. Like, this would have been the perfect weekend to blow it out and have a bunch of people hanging around playing USFL DFS all weekend. And then we didn't get the prize pools to kind of help buoy that enthusiasm. So we're going to keep rolling. I posted in the Deposit Kingdom Discord and the Run the Sims channel, the leverage plays, looking at the Sims relative to some projected ownership out there. So we're still grinding, still excited to make some lineups up here. But yeah, DraftKings definitely harshing our mellow.
And as Bullock points out there, inefficient markets will always breed opportunity. That is definitely true. And even if it's not, the biggest prize pools in the world, not as big as NFL or NBA playoffs or whatever else is going on out there, still is worth, probably throwing some money towards, because you are probably going to have more information than a good amount of people playing there, just by listening to this show or watching this show, or Run the Sims. We've talked about Osmo doing their USFL projections, really any sort of North Star. You have VTR and Cody Main and what he's doing. Just get something you believe in out there and just use it for yourself, and you'll probably find some decent results. Pete, are you ready to dig in for ride or die picks and go game by game on this? You feel adequately prepared? That's the question I would have.
Yes. As a USFL thought leader, I don't even have to prepare. It's just kind of in my bones, Spags, to have takes on all this stuff.
I wasn't confident enough in my ability to go like off the top of my head like we can for NFL, where Pete and I, we'll talk about general segments and we were pretty much prepared to talk about wherever those go. For this, Pete, I actually had to update my Excel spreadsheet. So I had everybody's projections. I have the Osmo projections. I have the Run the Sims. I have the spread, the team totals overall. Like, I had to put something in front of myself because I didn't trust the brain functionality to be there for the USFL yet.
Yeah, no, my main research that I've done so far was looking at the sim optimal rates compared to ownership. So I've definitely flagged some guys who look like you might want to be overweight on, and some guys you want to be underweight on. But yeah, this will be another weekend too, where I think we do have enough. There's some injury stuff as well, where things are going to change as the weekend progresses. I think that was also one of my reasons of being reluctant to MME. Was just knowing that it's, at least for me, as not a regular MME bro, a little bit more work to update your lineups in a smart way if stuff does change, compared to if you just have one or two. And so I think that's another interesting dynamic for this weekend, because a lot of people will set their lineups. I mean, you could look at the Poindexter ownership last week. He came in at a very high ownership. I forget what the exact number was, and it didn't budge. Even though people knew that and had the opportunity to do it. So I do think there is a big edge this weekend if you are willing to adjust your lineups as we get new information, because the field has already kind of shown they're not willing to do that.
So let's get into the USFL Week 2 game. And if you're watching on Peach channel or the Splash Play channel, hit that like button if you can. Helps us out a bunch. The first game up that is on tonight, we got the Michigan Panthers and New Jersey Generals. Generals a 1-point favorite, 20.7 implied points. The Panthers 19.75 implied points. And Pete, I'll throw it to you first here. What would be your ride or die pick for this Friday Night Football Bright Lights Clash of the Titans?
Yeah, I am going to go with Darius Victor as my running back play. He's looking like he's not going to catch a ton of ownership. I was seeing about 5% projected for him. He has that cheap salary at $4,000. I think one big takeaway everyone had from the first week of USFL is we all were not playing enough running backs. A lot of these teams are running 6, 7 wide receiver rotations, and it's very hard to kind of safely project targets. Whereas a lot of these backfields only have a couple running backs rolling here. And I thought Darius Victor there, who, doesn't have a massive projection, 7 to 8 points, but is showing up in the Sims a decent amount at that level. So I'm going to make him my ride or die play. Who do you got?
I think I just a quick note on Victor. Like, I think it's interesting there because Trey Williams is going to get a lot more headlines. A guy who did have more pass game work. So I think it makes sense to expect that maybe Victor, if he gets a touchdown or two, can level that out a little bit better. I will actually go a different way though, where I'm a little bit terrified because as I talked about, I'm pulling in the Osmo projections and the Run the Sims projections and just kind of grading them out against each other, seeing where there are some inefficiencies. Osmo and Matt Kajeski, I've talked about over there, is very sharp. As Lance Lenoir projected as one of the highest projected players of the week, 14.6 fantasy points. Justin has him at 9. So that's actually one of the biggest discrepancies on the week, Pete. And I'm a believer in what I saw from Lance Lenoir. He was a guy who's a former NFL prospect. I think weirdly, there's like a strange amount of former Cowboys in here. I believe he's one of those guys as well. But somebody that I worry about following, frankly, Osmo's projections, I'm sure will be deployed a bit more than some of Justin's will. But I feel like I'm terrified to not get the chalk here. Like, that's a giant projection on him. He was one of the target leaders last week with 9 targets. So I'm a Lenoir believer, even though it feels like this could completely sink your lineup on Friday night, which would be the worst possible outcome for the 4-game slate.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to what do we think that ownership actually, settles at. I do think, just as a very simple rule of thumb, second week in a very new league, there's going to be a lot of randomness and noise in those wide receiver kind of projection metrics. And whereas I think it's a little easier to project the running backs after this week. So I just wouldn't want to, chase the field's overconfidence into, wide receiver projection when that's kind of difficult to do right now. So yeah, seeing Lance at, plus, I was comparing the Sims to his ownership, and he was actually one of the guys to be most underweight in, as you mentioned, almost 10 percentage points less in the Sims than his projected ownership. So I just be careful about that. I do think if you are double stacking or you are kind of going overweight on this game, like obviously he's a good guy to have in your lineup, but I would say on the flip side, probably not wanting to play one-offs with him.
And Randy Satterfield, much cheaper despite being the top receiver in the league last week. Not a great projection again from Run the Sims, a better one from Osmo, but 4,800 on DraftKings is going to be somebody that is probably a very crucial play to get right on this weekend. Next game up on Saturday, we got the Pittsburgh Maulers, the Philadelphia Stars, and apparently it's also rivalry week for the USFL, which is, there's really not a lot of crossover between Michigan and New York, but this one, though, it is in-state rivals, Pete, and I guess I have to go first, and I am finding it tough to go back the Madre London way. He was so bad on Monday night, and granted, did have some interesting plays like 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage where he was just running around trying to make something happen. Didn't work out at all. Still projected well and Run the Sims. And I want to take him as being something, Pete, but I think you got to go the Stars way. And I will take that Brian Scott as actually the tournament winning QB for the 4-game slate, because this Pittsburgh team was so bad on Monday. Like, it felt like Tampa Bay could have done whatever they wanted. They just didn't, because they knew they didn't have to. Brian Scott, though, top throwing guy. And I feel like overall, a yardage leader in week 1. I feel like a guy we've talked about as well. Like, I feel like the Stars stack to me is really compelling. And Brian Scott, I think, wins it all.
Yeah, I like Brian Scott a lot. He looks like a pretty neutral play, as far as people want to play Brian Scott, but he's also appearing in the Sims a good amount of the time. So yeah, that looks good. Other guys who look like kind of popular but potentially neutral plays, Matt Colburn, the running back for Philadelphia. He looks popular, but also popping pretty nicely. It actually looks like the defenses here are going to be a little overused, just because I think people want to target, these quarterbacks a bit. I will say, you know what? I'll go back to the tight end with Philadelphia. I thought Bug Howard looked pretty good last game. And I think, if you think about his salary, he should probably be priced more as like a wide receiver 2, a 1B type wide receiver salary. And he's still here at 3,700. And yet he's projecting, for more points than, some of his other wide receivers in that offense. So I'll go with Bug Howard here, looking like a nice value and probably going to still be sub 10%.
Bug Howard, a guy who's going to be a direct pivot on a much better projected DeAndre Overton. People point out in the chat as well. And honestly, it's so funny where people we're all kind of trying to make this secondhand lingo, but FF Doom asking, is Roland out? Yes, Chris Roland actually is projected to be out, as is Devin Gray for Philadelphia. 2 guys who projected or would have projected pretty well going into this week, you would think. So as a result, DeAndre Overton, I would assume, is going to be one of the chalkiest plays, Pete. And that to me makes your Bug Howard play more interesting as a pivot point, because Overton, a 12.9 fantasy point projection on Osmo, Osmo 11 or just shy of 11 on Run the Sims. It feels like to me like over 10, if people are optimizing it all out there, like he's probably going to pop up in a lot of lineups.
Yeah, and I saw, if there's a few of our thought leaders out there that can, reasonably move some USFL ownership, and Cody Main here was pumping DeAndre Overton on Twitter, which I think is enough to get him a little steamy here in our contest. So yeah, I think I am, despite us sharing half of a last name overlap, I am going to have to be underweight. Under 10.
You have to be going under on overs. Unfortunate
Peter
for you.
under.
And Maurice Alexander, also a guy who could be a pivot as well, does have a decent projection for both Run the Sims and Osmo 3K flat. So Bug Howard, Maurice Alexander, probably the pivots to your chalky DeAndre Overton. What a silly sentence to say out loud. The other Saturday game, Pete, one that our own Justin Freeman's asking about, if we're talking about Alex Mago getting Wally pipped by Jamar Smith, it's the Birmingham Stallions, a 3-point favorite, 22 implied points, actually the highest implied total of the week. Going against the Houston Gamblers, they're getting 3 points technically at home, 19 implied point total for them. And I feel like the Jamar Smith part, Pete, the Osiris Mitchell, Victor Bolden, pretty fertile ground here for the Birmingham Stallions if you want to go that way. But what's your ride or die pick?
Yeah. Looking at things, it looks like Victor Bolden is going to be very popular again. And he is not showing up in the Sims with a frequency to kind of justify that, it would appear. So he kind of looks like a fade to me. I'll throw out a cheap guy who played decent last week on Birmingham instead. Marlin Williams, only 3,000. I think he looks like one of the better point per dollar plays. And, is projecting kind of right in line with some of the top wide receivers. So, I see his ownership sub 10%. Marlon Williams looks pretty good to me.
Isaiah Zuber is the way that I'm going to go here. Projected really well by Osmo, projected very poorly by Run the Sims. Luck box a touchdown last week. He is a former NFL practice squad guy. I think actually might have actually played in some games for the Patriots in that 2020 season as well. But I'll say, Pete, if Isaiah Zuber scores, what's the low number for Isaiah Zuber fantasy points for it to count as what would be a 10-pointer normally in Ride or Dies?
Well, I could tell you too, looking at because on the Run the Sims, you can see the projected, median, projected 75% outcome, and projected ceiling. So the Zuber ceiling is at 13.9. And his median projection is at 6.77. So I would say over, over 13 points.
Well, what about the under, though? Because I think he's going to be bad, and I think he's going to be the chalk that busts because people want to play Bolden, and then they go like, oh, I can't play Bolden, so they're going to play Zuber, and I think Zuber is also going to be bad.
All right, so his floor projection is 1.4, so I would say if he's like under 3, I give you it.
I'll take under 3 for the 10-pointer here. I am not a believer in the Houston Gamblers. I'm not a believer in Isaiah Zuber. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. And again, Osmo has a really good projection on him, but this is actually the biggest discrepancy between Osmo and Run the Sims projections on the week is one Isaiah Zuber at 9,500. So that is a tough price tag. And the Sunday night,
I just realized you didn't call me out on it. I was using more our ride or die as in how we would do it for Showdown, where I just give the Showdown captain. I realized I wasn't giving actual point.
Well, this isn't an official one. Like, we're not having Willa censor it, so I feel like we can. I know it's such a serious, important game normally, but I figure we could play a little fast and loose at the USFL.
Yeah. Dylan, yes, all the homies called me Peter overzealous in school. It was right after they stopped calling me Peter, Millimeter Peter. Then I got the overzealous nickname. Yeah, it was a nice shift.
That is honestly, that'd be a very cruel nickname, Millimeter Peter. Whereas I don't think enough kids know the word overzealous. They really gravitate towards that one.
No, it was Millimeter Peter. I got Overzet when I went through an acne phase in high school. So yeah.
I used to get Christopher Columbus, which I guess in hindsight is more problematic. But like when I was in, little like grade school or whatever, like, oh, wow, you're calling me the guy that we're all learning in history books discovered America. Like, wow, what a sick burn. He was also Italian too. But, in hindsight, again, very problematic. And maybe they were ahead of the curve.
They weren't ready to welcome you to the family, is what it sounds like.
Not. Last game, the Sunday main event, we got the Breakers and the Bandits, plus 2.5 for the Breakers. So they're getting 19 implied points. The Bandits getting 21.5 implied points. Jordan Ta'emu, a bit of a chalk disappointment, but really just didn't have to do much against that Pittsburgh team. Pete, I'll let you go first again, because this is actually a unique game here where I think it might be fun football on Sunday. And I hope it does get the attention that people are maybe willing to give the USFL, because this is clearly the marquee game of the weekend.
Spags, are you feeling the USFL I don't know, hive mind starting to fall in love with the Breakers. It does seem like they might be America's team here in another week or two.
You think it's all because of Dave the Wave that people that go to that name and that branding really got it over the top for everybody?
Well, him and Sal Cannella, of course, the Italian stallion tight end sensation.
He's the greatest tight end in football. And yeah, I think of Salvetri when I see his name, and I think that brings us all great joy. But anyway, Pete, when you have your ride or dies, but please don't make it Dave the Wave related, because again, Splash was right there, and it is a tremendous affront by the Breakers to not go with the name that is synonymous with our show.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Jordan Lasley as my ride or die pick. I know people are excited about who I believe the ETR guys are calling Cheyenne Gronk. And he's projecting only 5,000, but he's gonna be popular. He's gonna be real popular. Jordan Lasley is gonna come in with a fraction of the ownership. Justin does have him with a much lower projection than Cheyenne, but also has him as the next highest projected wide receiver with Tampa Bay. We know, just a single touchdown can easily swing those projections in one direction or the other. So I'll take the massive ownership discount at the same price. And Jordan Lasley looked pretty good last week, has decent pedigree as well. So I'm ready to go back to Lasley.
So I'm actually going to go a different direction here. And I will say that, of course, for the Sunday showdown for the Breakers and Bandits that will all be lining up to play, two tight ends, Pete, in that winning lineup between Sal Cannella and Cheyenne O'Grady, guys who really, the XFL was not great with tight ends besides Donald Parham, who we've talked a lot about in this show, is like kind of the prototypical guy to break out of the XFL at that tight end position. But Cannella and O'Grady, I thought, were the best receivers on both teams collectively last week. And it kind of seems counterintuitive to go with two tight ends when you can play wide receivers, but like these guys are both kind of lanky and also good middle of the field targets. And I think they can both get there. And I like the Gronk nickname. I like that it's always funny to compare these guys who are like fundamentally shit to like these really great players where it's like, yeah, lots of Gronk vibes with Cheyenne O'Grady, who couldn't even make a practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny looking at the highest projected players in this game. Obviously, the top two are the quarterbacks. The next two are the running backs, TJ Logan, BJ Emmons. Those are going to be popular. And then the highest projected pass catchers for both of these teams are the tight ends, Gronk and Sal, welcome to the family, Cannella. So I just feel like, I mean, in the same we've seen with NFL, right? I mean, tight end production can be very volatile. It can be reliant on touchdowns. And I'm kind of willing to chalk it up a little bit to, randomness in a small sample size and maybe utilize some of the non-tight end pass catchers a bit more if they're going to be super popular.
No, I think it's an interesting wrinkle, and maybe it's one of those things that there's some USFL blocking rule that we're not tuned into. Ivan, of course, did go to the Breakers game last week and met Dave the Wave, and he doesn't have glowing reviews in the chat, it seems. So at least maybe he hasn't been bought like our pal Justin Freeman has by just a glad hand from Dave the Wave.
That's right. Yeah. I saw your photo outside the stadium. Give us in the chat a little TLDR on your experience. We'll pull it up on the screen here. Curious how that went. And while you're doing that, Dylan asked, do you think Tiamo will be chalked this week? I do. I think he's going to still be the most popular quarterback, followed by Scott. Mm-hmm. And I do think if we get, full on confirmation that Magoo's not going to play at all, I think Jamar Smith is going to be very popular as well.
Yeah, I think Brian Scott is the one who has a shot to be the chalk this week. I mean, I would think it's still going to be Tamu because people talk themselves into, he didn't, play really more than that first quarter where he had 100 passing yards, but he was more of a pocket passer last week too, where it didn't seem like they wanted him to get out and run, maybe because of that Todd Haley offense. Brian Scott, I think Philadelphia is going to relish putting up points on that Pittsburgh defense that was so bad. So I think Brian Scott will be justifying whatever high ownership he gets. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to touch on, Peter? Is it time to dig into that rookie sophomore draft?
Yeah. I don't think there was anything else to discuss. Maybe we can, let's hop into the Underdog draft. They had, of course, their super flex drafts filled on Wednesday. We were trying to sneak into one on Ship Chasing to do one final one, and it literally filled about an hour before the show, but there is still space in the rookies and sophomore draft. So I say we rip one of these off.
All right, pull that up, and yeah, let's go. If you want to play along with us over on Underdog, get in right now and use that promo code SPLASH. Double your deposit up to $100 over on Underdog. And again, we play on these drafts every single week here. We're going to keep doing it all summer long. Lots of different formats. This one's the rookies and sophomores, again, to celebrate the NFL draft coming up next week. But either way, get on board with Underdog. Use that promo code SPLASH right now. Actually, one last question from the USFL. Pete, family man, pop it in the chat specifically for your Luis Perez takes. Do you think he's playable this week? I would say no for that timeshare with DeAndre Johnson.
No, I don't think he's playable. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, galaxy brain it a little bit in the same way, with Jamar Smith kind of coming on for them, and if you identify the super low owned quarterback that ends up playing the whole game, but I don't think it's worth it.
All right, so let's get it going. And Willis trying to time it out. Apparently, got into the room too soon. But we don't want to make it easy, Pete, because people have proven time and time again on these drafts we do on the stream that it's just plus EV to go against us because we're talking through our picks on the show.
That's right. We got to keep you on your toes. I like to balance our range. Sometimes when I pull up the screen share, I automatically register. Sometimes I sit on it. But we've been punished. We didn't get the 101.
No, you're not influencing as hard as you usually could. Maybe if you had a nice beer for yourself on a Friday.
Oh, God, I'm gonna have to get a beard here. A beer
or
a beard?
Both. Unrelated to actually related to beers, but the Friday beers meme account or whatever. The fact that is some guy did that and now is making untold money, and Dua Lipa's even commented on that. That's one of those baffling things to me that have occurred in social media over the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with that account. What is it?
It's they basically would post meme videos related to drinking beers on Friday, and then now it's become a lifestyle brand, as many of these meme accounts try to be. And I'll never knock the hustle, but it's just one of those things where it's we put in we do our shows, we put in efforts of being competent at knowing something, and then it ends up being just post funny already existing memes related to drinking beer, and you'll be crushing it.
Yeah. Wow. Who knew there's these corners of the internet that I'm not even privy to?
How could you? I'm disappointed. I'm actually surprised you didn't know that one. I'm sure there's a big Peter Overzet Friday beers overlap.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend. I think we should get Lance with one of these picks.
Yeah, I think we should. We did that last time too, but if he's going to be there, I feel like we'd be fools not to take him.
And I'm really coming around on Breece Hall being kind of undervalued, but I'm also open to Waddle or Pitts.
I don't think we've taken Pitts in a rookie sophomore draft, but I'm certainly not opposed to Breece Hall. I think he's going to be the top running back taken. I don't think there's any ambiguity to that now.
Yeah, I mean, the main things I'm thinking about in this draft are who are the guys that could really fully separate from the position? Obviously, Jamar Chase can just run laps around all the other wide receivers. And I think there are downside scenarios for Najee this year. I think, Javonte could very well end up in a committee again, as much as we don't want that to happen. But just the more I hear people talk about Breece Hall's profile and what a good prospect he is, I mean, I feel like there's a chance that he could just have a massive RB1 kind of season. And so I think mixing in exposure to him in these drafts makes a ton of sense.
It still wouldn't shock me if a Kenneth Walker ended up in the better spot and then kind of takes that jump. But I'm with you on it. I think he seems like he's the clear cut number one in terms of talent. It's just what if he ends up in Philly or something weird like that, and you got to deal with Miles Sanders and that bullshit. It would just be very tedious.
Yeah. I mean, you could also end up with sorry, we're on the clock.
Yeah.
Definitely a really nice spot for wide receivers here.
Yeah, I feel like Elijah Moore would be my choice.
Yep.
And then I don't mind Amon-Ra St. Brown coming back, but
do you like Amon-Ra over Devonta Smith, or are you just being a USC homer? I think I'm
in terms of the target floor, I feel like Amon-Ra I'd put above Devonta Smith. I just don't trust they're going to let Hurts throw a lot, whereas Detroit seems like they're going to throw a lot in a lot of different situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. I do prefer Devonta Smith, but I don't mind. I guess both of these are homer picks for you. You got your alma mater and your hometown birds.
That's true. Yeah, I'm known to love the Eagles here. I really live and die by them week after week. But we got Hurts, and we had like a nice little stack with the Eagles last time out. I think it wasn't Hurts, but
Yeah, we did the Trey Lance, Elijah Mitchell little San Francisco stack last time.
I think we did in the last Superflex draft we got a Hurts Devonta Smith one, I believe.
Yeah.
And we got
I've been getting a decent amount of those. I was inverted. Definitely liking his team there. Has the Lawrence Etienne stack, gets Chase up top, and then adds Burks there. We are back on the clock. I mean, I say we go full USC with Drake London here.
I support that conceptually. Drake London, Sports Info Solutions, we did a crossover show with. I think I plugged it on Monday, but honestly, worth the time watching. Football Outsiders did one with Aaron Schatz, Mike Tanier, and then Matt from Sports Info Solutions, as well as Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL GM. And I thought that they had some interesting takes about on SIS about Drake London and how like he basically beat press coverage at a level that nobody else in the league did or in college football did. And I feel like that's one of those spots where grades out really well for NFL prospects is if they can beat press coverage a lot in college. Kenneth Walker, I like. And I think if we get him and Breece Hall, we've got the top 2 running backs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking there for running back. It is really interesting too. I think it was on Ship Chasing. Maybe we did, or maybe it was another show. They're all blurring together now, but like asking where Ramondre Stevenson would fit in to this running back class as a prospect. And it's kind of interesting to see the ADPs. Oh, it was on the Swolecast. And we were asking Rich Rebar that where he would slot him. And he's like, I think you could probably make a case for him as the number 3 guy after Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. And it's kind of funny seeing that the ADP almost agrees with that, putting Ramondre ahead of Spiller, and kind of speaks to how weak this running back class is after the top 2.
Also, Connor's saying Amon-Ra over Devonta Smith seems like a hot take. I don't like, based on what Amon-Ra did on the stretch last year, I feel like that's not a hot take. Am I wrong here? Like, I really, like, I'm not biased. I actually was really disappointed by Amon-Ra to start the year, but he's getting like 10 targets a game down the home stretch and looking very good with all of them.
I mean, like I said, I am Devonta Smith over Amon-Ra, but I don't necessarily think it's a hot take. I think they both have, they're different types of wide receivers with how they win, but they both like flashed in year 1 in a way that I think can point to a good year 2 leap. But I think there's probably more ways. Let me articulate this after we make our picks. I think we should get another quarterback.
Yeah.
Who?
I think it's Davis Mills time.
We can do Davis Mills. And then I do not like this running back range. So I would probably be, Pickens or Sky Moore here. Or
Nico, for whatever.
I might, this might burn me, but I feel like we could get Nico in another round.
Okay. I like Pickens more just because of the body type and the size, but I know you are a Sky Moore guy. So if you want Sky Moore, okay.
Good. No, like I said, I get my Sky Moore exposure on Ship Chasing, and I get my USCs and George Pickens. No, I was just gonna say about I see the path to things going wrong for Amon-Ra a little easier, just because I think he was a little bit more reliant on volume and was getting monster volume down the stretch. I do really think TJ Hawkinson's going to take another step forward this year. Obviously, DJ Chark there as a more commanding thing. So I feel like Amon-Ra has a pretty high floor. But I do think if he loses 2 to 3 targets a game, he won't have access to the ceiling he had down the stretch. But he was really good with everyone knowing he was the main focal point of their offense. And I don't want to discount that either. And I've been sprinkling in both of them. This is just the biggest troll. Every time I say a guy's going to come.
I think that's FF Doom, right? He's Pecan Pecan.
Oh, is it?
I thought so.
I can't keep track.
All right. I would say, you want to take Spiller here and just get all the rookies and one of them?
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like one of them's going to end up in a good spot. You got to think.
Yeah. I think we're done at quarterback. We could grab another wide receiver.
No, FF Doom is FF Doom. Yeah. Sorry, FF Doom. But somebody's Pecan Pecan, I'm pretty sure.
I am myself. I'm telling you, it's every week. The one guy we can't identify is lurking in the chat.
Who else here? I feel like I've seen a lot of David Bell hype recently, but I like Josh Palmer in every situation.
Yeah, I like Palmer too.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Willis.
Not a bad team.
No, I mean, I will say with these drafts, they're very fun, but you always generally like your team, I think, a
Mhm.
good bit. Unless you really get squeezed out on quarterback and you just kind of hate your quarterbacks, it's pretty hard not to like your team, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable to say. I just like that we cornered the rookie market on running backs entirely. Like maybe Brian Robinson will be a goal line back of some value, but like in terms of guys who have a shot to be bell cow backs, like those three rookies are the ones I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Spiller is the one where things could go wrong just because
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
seems like any of these third running backs could go in that spot and you can't be surprised.
tough 420 this week, Pete, based on based on that call.
Had a smoothie right before we went on air.
Oh, okay, that's what we're calling that.
Yes. Spags. I know I didn't even really celebrate 420. I was a fraud.
Oh, Alex got a medicinal card here in Pennsylvania, so now we're covered on the home front. we're,
There you
we're
go.
doing good. Um,
Dylan screaming for Herbert. I like Khalil Herbert.
yeah, why not?
Um, and then yeah, I think we can go running back or wide receiver here. I've been drafting a decent amount of Zamir White um, as another rookie running back I like, but we could also go with a wide receiver. Although, maybe we get the stack if we are going to go Davis Mills, toss in
Yeah,
Brevin Jordan.
I think that's fair. Yeah, because we got scooped on Nico Collins. Maybe we'll luck into one of these other receivers ending up in Houston. But I think at least Brevin Jordan showed something on a pure snap basis last year. If not overall the body of work.
Yeah. Yeah. So our team, Trey Lance, Brees Hall, Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Kenneth Walker, Davis Mills, George Pickens, Isaiah Spiller, Josh Palmer, Khalil Herbert, Brevin Jordan. So thematically, we have cornered the market on the best rookie running backs. We have a USC theme running through. We have a Houston stack, and we even have a very unconventional Herbert to Palmer stack, not the Justin Herbert to Palmer, but the Khalil Herbert.
The better of the Herberts, many you're sitting out there right now. Also, to tack on to the Amon-Ra St. Brown conversation, part of the reason I do like him too, and people were talking about the second year elite, but I also think DJ Chark, like he's a downfield receiver, he's going to open something up, in that Detroit offense that wasn't there last year. Like it was Quintez Cephas actually not doing terribly getting the ball downfield. Josh Reynolds for portions. Like Chark is an upgrade on that, even coming off of an injury. So I think if anything, it could open up a little more room for Amon-Ra St. Brown, even if it does hurt the overall volume. So that's my little more logic there to defend my seemingly homerish pick.
Yeah. Dylan asking if Mills is good. I mean, Mills was surprisingly good this season. I mean, I think Houston probably isn't just sitting back like we have our franchise QB and we never have to look for one ever again. But I think he's gonna get a crack at it, and he deserves a crack at it. It's a bummer for him in that it doesn't seem like the team is actively looking to surround him with a bunch of wide receiver weapons, and they're probably going to struggle to find playmakers. But I don't know. He looked pretty solid to me last year.
They're bringing back Brandon Cooks. Like I feel like that's at least giving you one weapon outside that can do something. And hopefully Nico Collins gets better. They bring in a rookie, Brevin Jordan, who we took here, like certainly can get there. I feel like Davis Mills, like I don't know if you feel differently, Pete, but I feel like Davis Mills is going to be in the league for 10 years, and I find it hard to believe otherwise. Like he'll just, even if he's not great, he's like at least backup caliber.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look how it's just so hard for franchises to find good quarterbacks. Here's an interesting question. Where do you think Davis Mills would go in this NFL draft? Like relative, because you have a pretty important data point, which is he can be solid in the NFL.
He's probably number 3 on the list. I feel like Ritter maybe could talk people into him a little bit more with the track record. And I guess if you're an RPO team out there, maybe you want Matt Corral. But like I think to me, Mills probably feels like QB3. I don't think you'd go ahead of Pickett or Willis.
Yeah, no, I don't think he would. Well, I would say, yeah, I think Pickett and Willis are kind of those two guys that are locked, but I do think he'd probably be the third quarterback off the board in this year's draft.
I mean, he was like, that was a really shitty situation in Houston last year, both for everybody, like in the organization as well. Davis would be a first rounder, Pete Camp McConna saying. I don't know if I think that. I think he's a cusp first rounder, late second, or, beginning of the second round guy. But I feel like overall, like if you knew that coming in, that he would be in Houston taking beatings really with not a lot of talent around him. It was really just Cooks and you could say Collins, but Collins didn't really do a whole lot. Like, I feel like overall, like that's the kind of thing that NFL teams gravitate towards, just knowing that you're going to get at least replacement level play. And Davis Mills, to me, for rookie sophomore draft, maybe not the be all end all, but like replacement level play is something.
Yeah, it is. Spags, I have perfect timing for a segment to close us out on. I did line up in the NFL all day queue. They're doing their first throwback pack, the historical in the spotlight. And I'm claiming my pack now if we want to open that on stream.
Oh, yeah, I'm willing to do that. I don't think I have not logged into NFL all day in a very long time. I don't think my Amon-Ra St. Brown rookie moment is sold yet. But I'm curious to see how you did with this pack that I know they were hyping pretty heavily over email, at least.
Yeah, I got to get my Brett Favre. I saw someone in the Club VIP Discord pulled a Reggie White. Willis actually just shared his in there. Ouch. Chris Carter, Charles Tillman, Urlacher, Leroy Butler. So we'll see if I can do better here.
All right, well, fingers crossed for Pete here on NFL all day. A cherished place for all of your NFL NFT needs.
Thurman Thomas.
Ooh.
I do love the retro footage.
Would have been better if it were OJ, Pete. Basically,
I don't think he made that drop.
Damn.
FF dude, please do not use me lining up for a pack as financial advice.
Actually,
I just knew that.
So none of my moments sold, by the way, that I had previously listed. So that's good to know.
I was going to say the real truth, FF Doom, is I know how much Spags' OCD kicks in when we don't get to an hour of runtime for these splash play. And he was worried about having to vamp for 7 extra minutes after that draft. And I just swooped in to save him with some built-in programming.
That's inaccurate, Pete. I was going to go have another beer, call it a day early Friday here on Splash Play, but now we need to see the rest of this pack. That's when my OCD really kicks in. We got to finish the segment. Oh, Chris Miller, of course, one of our favorites.
Are you a big Chris Miller guy?
What is it like? Honestly, nice fucking throw.
I know, that mustache too.
Wow. This is the thing that frustrates me about NFTs in general. Like, this is a sick play, like a really good throw, but it's Chris Miller, like, who gives a shit?
Well, that's the whole issue with all of this stuff right now is a big curation problem where it's like there's so many players to use and striking out on ones that make us very excited. But we're not going to lose faith.
All right, here we go.
All right, Javon Walker. At least we're getting a Bronco.
Yeah, of course. Your long lapsed fandom, I'm sure, really kicking in big time with this one.
Oh yeah, this is bringing me right back.
Another great play though. He really did get behind that entire defense. Though I have to say, like guys who would be up for a moment, Javon Walker would not be very high on my list as a Bronco, especially. I
mean, my true 10-year-old Bronco fan self would love Rod Smith or Ed McCaffrey. Those were, the wide receivers during those golden years with John Elway, but we'll settle for Javon Walker from 2006.
Now let's see what number 4 is.
Here we go. Please. Randall Cunningham. All right. Here we go.
Not a great serial on it, but a very good player who's arguably the most ahead of his time of anybody you get from this
What
era.
A cannon on that one, too.
That is in stride, too, like rolling out of the pocket. That is an insane. We're not game film guys here, Pete, but I think even us laymen could say that's a fucking amazing throw.
Check out the combination shoulder pads and massive jersey on this wide receiver here. Like, both those shoulder pads are absurd.
That is a Super Bowl shuffle ready outfit for a receiver.
Yeah. That was, I like the Randall Cunningham. That one's fun.
I feel like you got a good mix here. Like nothing, I presume, that's going to be incredibly valuable, but talent-wise, you got a list of good names and some fun plays.
No, I'm done doing this show. After I open this pack, I'm rich now.
Well, thank you guys for watching this show. Of course, we'll be back on Monday with some more USFL recap, maybe another rookie sophomore draft if we can. But come back at 2:30 Eastern then. Follow at Chris Spags, follow at Peter Overzet, and follow at Splash Play Pod, no matter what platform you're on, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Clips are going up on all of them, so go check us out at Splash Play Pod. Pete, any final words for you? Are you doing a USFL showdown cram tonight?
No, I'm not. Maybe if I haven't even looked to see what the showdown contests are for later this weekend. If there's a good one, maybe I'll fire up a cram. But I have just been posting the best leverage plays in the Discord. But I figured this episode could serve as our proxy for USFL content.
We took it very seriously and earnestly, and I think we did a good job today with the USFL. We treated it like a sport that it deserves, even if DraftKings won't do that for us.
Yeah, no, we are. We will stick through this because otherwise we'll have nothing to talk about.
That's true. We'll have to just be friends and I'll have to cry on the show just to have more tragedies pop up. And also quick shout out to everybody out there who did chime in with words of support. I appreciate it a bunch. Obviously, I'm trucking through as best I can, but I'm just very kind to hear from people, whether it be in the YouTube comments or on Twitter or on Instagram or on the Discord, the Posit Kingdom Discord, of course. Just very kind to hear after my little heartfelt speech on Monday to my dog, Callie. But I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in here. We'll be back this Monday, 2:30 Eastern, so come hang out then. Enjoy your weekends, guys, and good luck in the USFL. Bye.